Honey, I need 8. We're going to have a great show. So get ready. Get into the groove of Beauty in the Spirit. And tonight's special guest, you had better get ready because we have a lot to feed you with. Isn't that right, Mr. Woodson?
Yes, get ready. Come on in. Come on in. We're waiting for you. Good to see you.
Hi, good evening. Welcome to Beauty in the Spirit. I'm Tina Thompson.
And I am Josef, and welcome. Thank you for joining us. How are you today, Mrs. Tina?
I am fabulously blessed.
Fabulously blessed. And you look beautiful. I love you're giving me Lady in Red.
Yes.
Beautiful. So great.
Yes. The woman in red, when she enters, the atmosphere says, ah.
Yes. Yes. Everybody who stops and watches and looks.
Speaking of schools of the arts, I wanted you to know that, a lot of the artists right now, they're really suffering because we had a place of refuge where we could just go to, where we could express ourselves and we could be who we are in spirit and life. And that is the artist who we are. But, I just feel right now, Mr. Woodson, what are your thoughts as far as all this stuff that's going around that our guests will be talking about, all these things happening around? How do you feel the artists really will come out of this? How do you feel we are affected as with everyone else, but specifically the artists?
Well, I think the artists, we have been starving for defeating our souls. We have not been able to perform, not been able to sing, dance, and just, show our creativity. And I think people are yearning for that. I think, the arts are so important, and people do not give the recognition to the arts that they need. And I think the whole nation is yearning for some creativity and outlets. When you don't have an outlet, you become, angry, maybe frustrated. You need the arts in order to express and feed your soul.
Absolutely. And that brings on the whole point of having people that have the voice for us, not just one specific voice, having a person, having people that understand the arts, music, dance, drama, politics, civilian life, citizen life, all of these things that an advocate embodies. A lot of people don't know that a public advocate is really an important position in society, let alone in our government. The public advocate is a non-voting member of the New York City Council, especially here in New York, with the right to introduce and co-sponsor legislation. And we know we have a lot of work to do with that. But prior to the 2002, in that year, the charter revision, the public advocate was also the presiding officer of the council. So that person plays a very, and I said he, and I went to shift myself because I'm going she, which can now occur in these days with Kamala. But I'm going to that with my sister. But long story short, you get it. So I'm saying this person, he or she plays a role and has played a role as a presiding officer of the council. And that is amazing. They have a voice. They make a difference. And speaking of that, we will bring in our first guest, our main guest. But me, you are always a guest. Yes. But our guest tonight is public advocate elect. His name is Tony Herbert. We have Mr. Herbert tonight as a special guest because he is running for New York public advocate, or should I say advocate, when it comes to his political stand. When Tony was a teenager, a wave of gentrification cost his family their home. He was raised by a single mother who dedicated her career to New York City public school students. She taught Tony to appreciate education, hard work, and family. They didn't deserve to lose everything as he sat in an abandoned building in Prospect Heights that is now his home. Tony made a pledge. He would make the city more equitable. Currently, Mr. Herbert continues to serve as an executive community member of the NAACP, New York City Housing Authority chapter. He's the executive vice president of the Youth Step USA and president of the National Action Network's New York Public Housing chapter. Our elected officials, they listen to Tony. They take and heed his advice. He provides crucial guidance to the members as an addition, and he is also an accomplished media consultant. His career in public and community service is highly respected. Above all, Mr. Tony Herbert is married and he is a father of four, an everyday New Yorker. He holds on to the values that his mother taught him. He'll do right by the New Yorkers. Welcome, Mr. Herbert.
Wow. I'm kind of like, who's she talking about? How's it going? Joseph, thank you guys for this opportunity. I really appreciate it.
We're so thankful and happy to have you. You look like you're enjoying this weather. So
actually, it's my first time outside. What I mentioned when we were backstage, I'm actually on domestic duties today, so I can get things caught up, so I can go out and campaign for the rest of the month, or I'll be on punishment. I can't come out.
Well, that is a great way to make this introduction. As you know, of course, I was talking about the one and only Tony Herbert. So I appreciate and I am obliged by your humility. But as you can see, the lady in red, she has had much humility. But I've learned this thing, Mr. Herbert, before we get into you, because this is about you. I've learned that when you have such a presence and you have such a stance and a mission in this thing called life, and you are somewhat of a pioneer like myself, you have to have that voice, whether it's appreciated or not, to make the truth known. And a lot of people sometimes will not get it unless you are strong and affirmative. And sometimes humility doesn't have a place in those actions. So exactly. I appreciate your humility. Could you tell us a little bit about where your stance in the New York public advocacy? We would just explain more about what are you seeing that's occurring right now? What do you expect and what do you hope to do for us?
Well, one, quite frankly, we're in some serious circumstances coming out of the COVID pandemic. It's placed us in some serious detriment, quite frankly, economically, socially, financially, you name it. And we have to rebuild, not only rebuild financially, but we also have to rebuild within ourselves to bring us back together to being community. And some of the issues that we're seeing right now is a lot of folks who have suffered through some form of psychological effects based around being closed in, some left alone where they couldn't come out because of the pandemic, some in relationships, some married who were locked in with their loved ones and had to learn or relearn them, quite frankly, being exposed to those, to that atmosphere of not being able to be outside and moving around. So a lot has come into play that we have to actually circumvent to ensure that, New Yorkers understand that New York is open for business. New York is again in a position or what have you to be here to allow them to do the things that New Yorkers would normally do. So we're getting back to that. But at the same time, we have to have responsible leadership leading that way. What we got was when the pandemic hit was we got a lot of rhetoric. We got a lot of people giving us misinformation because they wanted to make the headline news. At the same time, we had leadership that has failed us financially because the resources wasn't there to accommodate us in every which way that we needed. So a lot of those things came into play, and we're now bouncing out of that. So now we have to come into a circumstance where we have to be more responsible or hold those responsible in a leadership position that moves the city forward. And that's why I'm running for public advocate. I find that, I'm not disrespectful of a brother. What I'm talking about is an individual's politics who, for the most part, is not working for our community. It only benefits those who basically want to come in and change the way that we as New Yorkers exist. And we can't have that. We have a culture that we understand. And we don't need people coming in here from Ohio and other cities and what have you, where they have these Shangri-La valleys and they want to come in here and humble us. This is New York. You can't do that. New York is fast paced. We have a lot of energy, but we're creative in what we do and we're effective. And we've been that way for a long time prior to these people bringing in these concepts that might work in, Mayberry, USA. So at the end of the day, we have a public advocate right now that is subscribing to that little group of people that's trying to move him in that direction. So they're bringing these terminologies, reform and reinvent it's just a whole cancer culture. All of this craziness that seems to be the signs of the times today is basically just sexy words of what we've already been dealing with for the last 30, 40 years, because we're having the same issues. And that's what we have to get around. We've got to get out of these same issues and have real leadership that has a vision that's going to push us in the right direction. That's why I'm running for public advocate.
Absolutely. And I love how you just went into, there are a lot of positions right now. There are a lot of circumstances that are in dire need for this city's attention, especially our legislation and public advocacy. Do you realize, Mr. Herbert, I'm sure you know, that 2,600 officers, we're going to get into it. We're going to get into it, guys. 2,600 officers quit and 2,746 filed for retirement, according to the New York Post. 5,346 officers who left the force were nearly 2,300 more than left the force in 2019. And then 1,509 officers quit and 1,544 filed for retirement. So the numbers keep going up in retirement with the officers. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, one, we're losing a lot of leadership. Let me say this, quite frankly. If it's those officers and what have you that don't respect their oath, yeah, we want them to go. But not the police officers who are doing their job and have done their job and have actually respected us as New Yorkers. We need that. We need their experience to help these new officers that are there that's basically been on the job maybe 2-3 years or whatever the case may be. I want to be very clear on something. I'm actually endorsed by all of the law enforcement agencies in New York City for my candidacy. But that's only because I take a pro-public safety position. It's not that I'm pro-cop. I'm pro-human being, but at the same time, I'm pro-public safety. And if we have officers out here that are willing to do the job, that are those that are running to the case where people are running from when bullets are shot, our cops are running to that. And those are the cops we want on duty because they're there to protect us. And when it's said and done, I understand the issues. I'm a black man. I think I've been black most of my life. And we're not. I'm more sure of it, right?
Absolutely.
So I understand the dynamics of what needs to be done, and I understand what has happened with police of the past. And what we do need now is somebody that has a common sense to be able to sit at a table and not be adversarial and have the conversation with the police to express what we're feeling in the community as black men. I'm raising 3 young black men and a black daughter. So I need them to understand what they feel. But at the same time, I want the officers to understand that they're respected because they're doing their job, those that do it. So we have to have somebody that's responsible enough to be at that table to have that conversation. You can't go there with arms up and already being disrespectful. That doesn't get you anywhere. It doesn't bring a mutual relationship or production and what have you when you're acting that way. And unfortunately, this public advocate that's in office right now is that person that's going out there being adversarial and disrespectful because he's playing to a small group of people that are here to disrupt our way of living. And that's not good.
You know what, Mr. Herbert, I just find that to be very insightful because of the simple fact that today's show is about to serve and protect. And just to examine what serve and protect means is that we know that police officers have many duties. They're responsible for upholding the law, preserving the peace, preventing crime, and assisting victims. A lot of people don't understand to that end that they have made the following commitments to people in crises and more broadly related to people with mental health issues. Part of that is one of the top 10 is that the members of the police department are committed to preserving the lives of people in crises, as aforementioned, and the goal is safety in every citizen, and they aspire to preserve every life. They should, as you said, and we want to get rid of the ones who don't adhere to any of these codes and these oaths that they swore in. And in every encounter with a person in crisis, they are committed to taking all reasonable steps to attempt to de-escalate. I repeat, de-escalate a potentially violent encounter. 3, recognizing the increasing complexity of responding to people in crises we have been given in the mental health system. We remain committed as officers, they said, to self-improvement and innovation and in policing and mental health. Also, the elimination of stereotypes have to go, and the stigmatization that victimizes people with mental health issues. And they also have to involve people with mental health issues directly and create initiatives and training in the development of relevant police procedures. And number 7 is basically that officers, they want to continue to work collaboratively with partners in mental health, public advocates, including individuals as yourself, mental health organizations, and hospitals. They are also committed to the institutional leadership in matters of policing, and also committed to fostering and maintaining a positive mental culture in the New York City and basically worldwide police servicing. So these are the attributes that most officers who have made that oath in policing, they should be adhering to. And we, as you said, we want to get rid of those, and we want to make sure they do their time if they break the law. So what are your thoughts about what you would do as a public advocate as far as those policies are concerned? Would you add to those policies, or is something missing?
Well, I think first and foremost, we have to make sure we have adequate coverage of security in our city. Keep in mind, New York is probably number one terrorist target in the world. At the end of the day, what we can't do is not afford ourselves an opportunity to be protected at every turn. Our subway system is a target. The power plants we have here are targets, which is close to public housing. So there's a lot of variables that are tied to this whole thing that we have to ensure the proper funding is in place to make preparation for all security measures to help us out. So I want to say I'm not about defunding the police. If you want to reappropriate monies or whatever the case may be, first and foremost, make sure our security bases are covered with regards to our tourist attractions, the World Trade Center, stuff like that. What we don't need is to put ourselves in a position to be attacked like we were attacked at 9/11. But also I want to say this. If we're talking about the responsibility of monies being available, let's talk about a city council who allow this mayor to go out there and waste $1.some billion on a venture that we still can't even account for, which was this Thrive NYC program, which was supposed to cater to mentally ill people and homelessness on our streets. We haven't seen that money be applied in any shape, form, or fashion. All we know is we're missing $1.some billion. Now, if you're talking about pulling money from anywhere, that would be the place we should have pulled it from and made it available to other, to programs that are here in the city and not compromise our safety. So I do say this, we do need social programs. We do need to give our young people an opportunity to get jobs, to have opportunities to be trained. And if that were the case, why did we take vocational training out of the school system and not afford them an opportunity to learn a trade so that they may possibly someday become a business owner with that trade? So we've taken a lot and done a lot and are hurting ourselves because of mismanagement, faulty leadership, and basically we're putting it on the police. We're making the police actually the answer to everything because people don't want to deal with it. Give it to the police. But when the police handle it and it gets out of hand in some shape, form, or fashion, now everything is about let's destroy the police. We've got a leadership team in government, both in the city council and in the mayor's office, that is not working for us right now. And I'm not going to say all of the city council people are bad, but actually, if we want to say that, when people talk about cops and saying all cops are not bad, but the bad ones should turn on the bad ones, and the good ones should turn on the bad ones and bring them forward. Well, I say the same thing about the city council. Bring those city council members out here that are falsifying documents, that are putting monies in other communities that's not even theirs for the purpose of creating political collateral to help themselves down the line and taking away from their constituency. So we've got to look at the coin from both sides. If you're going to go throw a brick, make sure you don't live in a glass house. And that's what we have a problem.
Excuse me, Mr. Herbert. You know what just rings in my ear, Mr. Woodson, please chime in after I'm done. I'm so sorry.
No.
What just grasped me and me supporting your stance in a lot of different issues is the word that comes to me and that grasps me is accountability. And I use that when I'm either teaching students in dance, arts, theater, or just in education. And especially when I have a arts initiative that I've written up proposals in the school way before our whole new civil rights era, as I call it, of trying to, before all of the attention on Black Lives Matter and on our people as a whole, as a woman of color, trying to say, you know what, we need to empower these kids. We need these kids to take some accountability, meaning that you always get the double-edged sword, meaning if you tell children about discipline and guess what? No, you know, I'm segueing, but it is relevant. You guys will see. No, you can't come to my class with your pants hanging down. It doesn't mean that I'm not for my people. Like you said, I'm a Black woman. I've been Black a long time, baby. And my thing is this: I have gone into the situations of environments, into the neighborhoods. I'm going to put it out there. That's another show, Mr. Woodson, where a lot of my elite constituents in the dance community, if it's not paying them or it's not an arts program with a higher echelon and some name dropping of who sent them over or what institution sent them over, you would never see them in that neighborhood if such and such didn't send them over, and they could say this big name that sent them, and they know who I'm talking to. See, the reason why I like Mr. Herbert is because he reminds me, and we'll talk, Mr. Herbert, about, I'm just jumping around because I know the last time we spoke was on the phone, and you were trying to organize a house music festival and the dance music festival, and you reached out to me and you said, Miss Thompson, I love Skin. You were at the Colonel Abrams in the whole I think it was Oktoberfest performance, and you just were there and you loved Skin, and you just like it, you know, work together. And so things as you know, we get busy, as I know myself know. But as I'm going back to what I was saying, the accountability is, we go into the schools, we do the work. We've had shows about this before, Mr. Herbert, about how we do the work. And a lot of people don't understand you have done the work and you are out there on these streets. Speaking of being out there on these streets and the accountability, I just want to give you guys a taste of what Mr. Herbert encounters when he's out there fighting for our rights.
I don't care what the police say. I have the right to say, fuck those pigs. I got the right to say they could kiss my ass. All right? I got the right to say they ain't nothing but a racist bunch of pigs, because the First Amendment of the Constitution gives me that right. And I'm not gonna let nobody take it. I can say fuck the police 1,000 times. I have the right under the Constitution of the United States to say that. I have the right to be upset. I don't want my 10-year-old nephew to be the next one victimized. My nephew, like I said, walk up and down these streets every day by himself from school. There's people that don't even live here.
Yo, you from around here though?
Huh?
You from this hood?
Why are you asking me from this hood?
Because I'm saying I don't see you and my little black brothers is shooting each other out here. I don't hear you doing the same thing.
Listen, all right, you want to talk about shooting each other? Let's talk about who bringing these guns to our kids in these neighborhoods.
But you ain't
these kids don't have the credential or the paperwork to go get these guns themselves.
This is a vigil.
You understand? All right, so why you coming out of nowhere? You don't even know who I am. You know what I represent?
I don't care who you represent. You don't look
I
like
represent
anybody out
the people.
here that's got an issue.
I look just like everybody out here. You crazy? I look like everybody out here, my brother.
They just quiet it down.
I don't need to quiet it down. This is what I'm talking about. Police officers, I have people like this coming to dictate and agitate and take people away from the reality. And when reality.
Wow.
let me set the scenario up on that. That was with regards to a shooting of this young man in East Flatbush named Kamani Gray, who was shot by the police, and a gun was found by his side when that happened. We don't know if he had the gun or not. But what my problem was with that person, all he does is goes to these scenes to rabble-rouse. And that was supposed to be a vigil in honor of this young man, and it was peaceful until he started talking. And what he did was he wanted to agitate these young brothers and sisters up and get them amped up so that they would start challenging the police. And what he would do is cowardly run behind them and let them be out front. You heard him mention about his nephew. His nephew didn't live nowhere in the area. He's from the Bronx. So he was there on this whole thing called Cop Watch, which is an organization they started. Now, don't get me wrong. The police should be held accountable for whatever instances, quite frankly, that they run afoul on. And if they didn't run afoul on it, then they should be supported. My problem was he was agitating young people who was not related to him, putting them in the forefront of his agenda, and they would be the ones arrested and hurt while he hid behind them. And that's why I approached him in the way that I did.
About the reason why I chose this is because I appreciate you giving us a little bit of the feedback on that in the background history. But I also know that a lot of people are very passionate because we as colored people, we understand what it's like. But for me, I'm just going to stay a little bit politically correct, as I want you to also be the voice for us in a lot of ways, and we have your back with this. But where I have a problem, Mr. Herbert, and I'm going to put it out there, I have a problem because I'm just as voiceful and aggressive as the next one when it comes to killing our men of color, and then when it comes to all types of injustices. Trust me and believe me, I am for the power to fight and march and vote and do everything that we have to do. But where I come into a problem, and that's why I support you in a lot of areas, is when you come with the disrespectful melee and you cause a lot of some people say, oh, well, this is how we express ourselves. Listen, you're not going to drop that on me. I know as an educator that you also invoke a lot of drama when you start yelling. When you have a student that gets loud and starts invoking drama, the rest of the students, as we know, they start coming. And then the kids start screaming, fight, fight. Yeah. Anyway, people understand we're all adults out here. We get it. It doesn't mean you can't be mad. A lot of us are mad as hell. But
right.
The first thing is you have to realize if you are going to hold an honorable position, you have to know. You have to, one, have accountability to what you're saying, and two, you have to control your emotions. And that's how I feel. There's been many times in life when I wanted to walk into a lot of these white-based institutions, yes, I said it today, and say, listen, you have wronged me for the simple fact that I'm a Black woman. Then guess what? I cannot do it because I hold myself to a higher standard. And I said, you know what? I know how I'm going to fix them up. I'm going to achieve. I'm going to represent my people in an honorable way. And when they turn their heads, they're going to say, wow, she did the opposite of what I expected. And I see on television with Black women fighting each other and calling each other the B word. Now, you come on up here, Mr. Woodson.
You said it. You said it, Mrs. Tina. You do have those people in those crowds that will try to rile everybody up because they want people to start fighting and throwing and destroying their own communities. Which ends up happening. Buildings are burnt down. I mean, things happen in my own neighborhood where, people were protesting for George Floyd, but in the process started destroying the neighborhood. So I understand it. It's not right, but we do need to control our emotions. Like, I understand that injustice is happening and you need to go out and protest and say what you need to say, but you need to do it in a proactive way.
The crazy. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Joseph. I'm sorry.
No. I just want also to have you touch on the fact about the homeless issue here in New York City. My biggest fear in this pandemic was getting back onto the subway. And since I've been back on the subway, it's like the homeless people have taken over mental illness. And I feel like no one is stepping forward to take care of them. And I just don't know what's happening. It's like we're reverting.
So my thing is that they're misrepresenting the agenda with regards to being able to say what really Black Lives Matters means. They're devaluing it. And I have an issue with that. And I issue with him because at that same time, a cameraman for News 12 was there and they were about to knife him in the back because this guy was agitating them. And we had to stop that. So that was what actually triggered me to approach him. I'm like, dude, you're getting these young people worked up and there's no need for it because before you got here, they were just mourning their young friend. And that was that. You got them rabble-roused to the point they started running up and down Church Avenue, robbing stores and throwing things around. And this guy, he was a part of the process that did that. So I had to jump in on that one.
Absolutely. And, speaking of that, Mr. Woodson, we have in the news, it's a homeless man. He faces attempted murder and a hate crime charge this Tuesday. Nearly after a week, he allegedly brutalized a 61-year-old man at an East Harlem intersection. His name is Gerard Powell, age 49, and he last resided at a homeless shelter on Ward's Island, according to the police. And Mr. Herbert, the Department of Homeless Services, they recognized Mr. Powell's picture from published reports from the attack. and they apprehended him. They brought him to the 25th precinct for further questioning. But during the interrogation, the police sources says he allegedly fessed up to kicking and stomping a 61-year-old male victim at the corner of 3rd Avenue and East 125th Street, about 8:20, and you guys know the rest. But the victim suffered significant injury in his, and he was in a coma and came out, and he struck him from the back, knocking him on the sidewalk. And then the attacker continued, and but following the beating, the suspect he fled in an unknown direction. But if it hadn't been for those homeless shelter workers recognizing him and citing him on and apprehending him, you know, he would have got away. And it also, you know, it was another instance. I can't recollect, but I'll get to the specifics. On the train, another woman, she was sitting, and a homeless man just they cut her in the face or something and just ran off the train. You know, this is what I'm going to say today, and I'm going to remain politically correct and neutral. But let me tell you this: I'm going to say it. I need the police.
Yeah.
And not the bad ones, the racist ones, and we know the rest. Okay, because they gotta go. Okay, especially with the work we have to do for our men of color and our brothers and our loved ones. I have many Black men in my family and my cousins and the people I love. I feel for them. But you know what I do? And I say it. When you get stopped by the police, I don't care if he racist as a Mr. Herbert in my car right now. And I'm going to do this today, Joseph. It's necessary. I see the comments up here. They're thanking me and they're thanking us. Okay, I'm just going to do it. Okay. And you know, once it's on the web, it's on the web. But trust me, I'm a very intelligent woman. Okay. And I know that this needed to be done because there are people, we are for police reform.
Well,
we get it. You know?
Black folk are not screaming. That's not us screaming defund the police. That's a group of people that's here pushing that agenda that don't look like any one of us on this show right now. Yes. And they're in the lead of this whole movement. So my problem is either some serious guilt going on, or there's an agenda, quite frankly, to usurp our energy for their agenda. And we got to be wise to that at the end of the day. Do we have issues with regards to policing across this country? Yes, there are some pockets. There are people in different cities acting up. But why must that always come back to New York, where we're building bridges and we're working through our circumstances? But yet every time something happens out of state, it comes back and it reopens the wounds we have here. To be put back and thrust in the forefront, and then next thing you know, here come all the pimps out of the woodwork. You know, saying Black Lives Matters. Let's remember, and God forbid that, you know, we lost a lot of people. Eleanor Bumpers, Eric Garner, all these people. All that opens back up again, and it's been 5 years since it's been quiet. So we have rabble rousers that benefit from this. We have fake Black leaders that are out here pushing this agenda and what have you, so that they can get paid. And I've called them out. So much so, they threaten to sue me. I'm like, sue me, do what you got. I ain't got nothing for you to take. Just sue me. But at the end of the day, I'm going to make sure people understand that you're misleading our community. Do we have a problem? Yes. Are we working to fix it? Yes. Do we have leadership that's failing us? Hell yeah. And we've got to get past that leadership. But somebody's got to have the backbone to call them out and not be afraid of the status quo and not be afraid of politicians who's going to come back and say, well, I'm going to take your funding, or I'm going to make sure you don't have a job. I'm not threatened by none of that, because you can't take a damn thing that you didn't give me, or you can't take away from it. So I'm ready.
Absolutely. And you know, New York City, you know, let me just say this before I go into our mayoral candidate Eric Adams' statement of young white affluent people leading the defund the police department. He said the New York City department is being led by young white affluent people. He told New York Magazine that people of color are not pushing for it majority wise, and he said a lot of young white affluent people who are coming in and setting the conversation. And Eric Adams is a former NYPD officer, and he's running for New York City mayor, and he's been differentiating himself on the Democratic field as a pro-public safety candidate who sees more police as part of the solution. And I see that you two guys you two sirs are under the same umbrella, because I find that a lot of us, and I'm going to say it, and I have every right, as a woman of color and of the minority people in the color community, what happens is we feel as if something happens, if we're not out there marching and screaming, that we're not an advocate or we're not a fighter. Yeah, or we're sellouts, or what is that word?
Cool. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Listen, Mr. Herbert, I'm doing this political show right now, but listen, you know, Atina Thompson, I dare someone to walk up to me and call me a cool. Oh, right then and there, I break out into a djembe, and I will do a back kick into a West African split. And I would say I have 25 years of footage there of teaching in underserved communities and getting and parking my car before I had a car and getting off the train in areas that had crack, bottles, all types of stuff. And I walked through with my pearls and I said, I'm going into this community center or into this school to teach my children ballet. And when I got done, their parents were like, I never thought my child would know, come home going first, second, third, fourth, fifth. This is a white European culture that you have taught my child some technique. And we went, Joseph and us, we know the Arts Initiative, that's another show, but we go, like I said, we do the underground work. A lot of us do it, but a lot of us don't. It's the same in the arts, Mr. Herbert. We all want to do all this rah-rah, but you never see them up at Lincoln Center saying, where's the people of color running this department? Mm-hmm. That's going to be another show. You feel me?
I'm seriously aligned with a lot of the positions of Eric Adams, with the exception of a lot of this pure violence stuff that they speak to. I think that there needs to be an audit and some oversight with regards to this. I get it. You know, we're employing, people from our community to go out there and serve our community to help stop the violence. But I just want to make sure that we're being more proactive than reactive, which is what basically this city is saying, that, we're going to give you funds to go out there and deal with a situation you're supposed to be dealing with up front, but you praise them when they react to it. So what I think should be done with these particular organizations, because some of them are very successful in their outreach, particularly that like Erica Ford in Queens with Life Camp, the Man Up in East New York, and SOS in both Crown Heights and the Bronx and in Brooklyn, they have programs where they're proactive. But my problem is I can't speak to a number of these other organizations, which we actually need to do oversight on to ensure that our monies are not being wasted. And if they're doing great, then let's give them more resources. But if they're not doing what they're supposed to do, then we should disband that particular organization and manufacture that money into another one that is successful and just expand their territory. But there's no oversight. We just hear the mayor telling us, oh, this is the reason things are going down is because this group and that group. And we don't have there's no data to support that. So I support supporting them, but at the end of the day, I want to make sure there's oversight so the taxpayer dollars are getting exactly the bang for the buck that we should be getting to protect our city.
Absolutely. So on your closing words, Mr. Herbert, first of all, we want to just thank you for coming up here as our guest and to elaborate on your stand and your position in the public advocacy. And you have answered that very thoroughly. And if you guys want more information, as you can see, I've attached the link on where you can meet Mr. Herbert and go on his forum and learn more about him. You can also follow him on Facebook or Instagram or any of the other social media apps that we have, and you can get to know what he stands for. And as you can see, everyone is entitled, I believe this, everyone is entitled to not only their opinion, everyone is entitled to have a way of thinking for themselves. Me personally, I've always been a leader. I've never been a follower. And the way I chose to fight, even in white-led institutions and environments, was to always hold my head up, and I would know about the deception and all of the demonistic things that they would do to people of color behind the scenes. And I knew that if I got loud or belligerent, that's all they were waiting for. That's all they were looking for, is to say, see, and especially as a leader and a pioneer, I know that people are always waiting for something to see you diminish yourself after all those years of hard work. And on that end note, before I let you go into your last words, that's where I'm going, is that people have a way of taking and discrediting people's years of hard work on one statement or one act of aggression And I find that to be a pitiful shame of how social media is just taking people down from and in their years of work and their years of community leadership. So do you have any words in that?
Yeah, I just, I mean, I totally agree 1000%. We have folks out here in our own community, for the most part, that they don't think for themselves. They go out and then somebody will tell them something negative and they run with it instead of doing their own research, which basically could hinder them from having some type of accessibility to something that can be advantageous to them as well, or a person that can be advantageous because they go on somebody else's word and didn't think it enough to go do their own due diligence and learn. I just want to say this, as public advocate, one of the things I pride myself in looking towards is having the ability to finally get our young people to the table. Everybody talks about our young people and they hold conversations of what they want to do. I have a project and a program that I want to put in place in day one, once I become elected, to where our young people will actually be in a position to ask the questions and hold those accountable that are in legislative position to bring before them in a hearing as a part of a citywide youth council that will ask the questions necessary and hold them accountable to enact and to execute what they made commitments for when they got elected. So one of those things I pride myself on is a citywide youth council, and also the formation of actually a checks and balances kind of a bureau. I'm creating what's called the Public Integrity Bureau, which is designed primarily to look at and monitor what they are doing financially with this discretionary money that comes out of city council and all the other elected officials when they say they're earmarking monies for their constituency, but yet we find that they're spending that money in other communities to build political capital. So what you've done has taken the money away from the very community that you say you represent that needs that, and you're putting it somewhere else because you're now self-serving. And you're putting yourself in a position to set up for that next career jump, and you're forgetting you're supposed to serve your community. So I'm going to be doing checks and balances on that because that's the introduction to corruption. And if we can weed that out, we can finally hold these elected officials accountable to do their damn job. The second thing is I'm going to make sure that I stand strong behind our corrections officers. They need more help right now than they've ever needed, because the problem is what's going on in jail right now is finding its way out on the street. And if you don't fear going to jail, knowing that you're a part of a gang that runs to jail, guess what's going to happen? More havoc, more gunfire, and more drug sales, because those individuals who are here from all these different cities, they're the ones now manifesting, buying, and purchasing the drugs that our young people are now looking to surface and sell again.
And I also want to say on our conclusion is this. We have the fight against bad cops, racism, and a whole bunch of things that our people have endured for over decades and for a long time. We are tired. We want to be empowered to have a voice, and we want to be able to have our men not be feared, as well as our women not be killed and decimated in the middle of the street. We earned that right. We are human, and we are part of this society just like everyone else.
And I'll be a part of that. I'll be a part of the team that goes in and weeds that out. Yes. Absolutely.
And my stance is this. The accountability has to be taken on black crime. The accountability has to be taken on our communities. We have to take back our communities and be responsible for becoming better leaders and changing the behaviorisms that don't bring our people in a good light. That will bring us a little bit closer to getting some change. If you want police reform, just like me, you had better change yourself. Don't forget, there's a great quote. The change starts within you. You want to change somebody else. And that's how I live, and that is my mission. We thank you, Tony Herbert, for joining us on Beauty in the Spirit. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
All right. Good luck to you.
Be safe. Thank you.
Be in my community when you have to go back home and tell a mother, I'm sorry that your son or your daughter just got their face slashed, looking like this, walking around minus a finger or something to that effect. Is that what you call safety inside these jails? Is that what you call safety? How about this, a deep cut? They call this a $150, right across the face. What are you guys doing? What are you doing? I just sat here and I tried to be conscious about the fact of listening to what you guys are talking about. But when it's all said and done, I hear all these little groups coming in, getting their little grants and walking in there talking about how they're going to save black and brown people, but yet we're still winding up like this. Correction officers slashed in the face. Residents who just want to get their day in jail and whatever, or get to the trial, and this is what they're faced with. Had a mom call and tell me, Mr. Herbert, I can't put more than $50 in my son's commissary because he's being threatened and whatnot, because they know he can buy something. So he's going to turn around and get slashed and then wind up looking like this. What are you guys doing? What are you doing? I'm upset because I heard a good friend of mine stand up here and tell you that he had concerns about those that he represent. And this guy calls him a piece of shit. Is that what you represent up here? Calling people a piece of shit? And if that's the case, then you don't need to be here. And if I have to, I will march every single person I know to the front of your goddamn house to rally around these people that worked in that jail, to rally around those inmates who deserve to be on trial unscathed, to walk into a situation where they have to have their throat slashed, eyes punched in, sockets knocked out. Come on, people, what are y'all talking about up here? You're doing a bidding of the mayor who sits comfortably in Gracie Mansion and don't have to worry about a goddamn soul touching him because he's got over 20 guards around him? But these guards got to go in there with flashlights and cameras? What do they have to protect themselves? What do our inmates have to protect themselves with? So you can get upset with him. I'm not paid by the mayor, owned by the mayor, or anybody in this damn city. But I will guarantee you, you will hear the voices of the people in our community. We're tired of seeing people getting killed, chafed up or killed or stabbed in these centers. And you guys want to talk about, let's get a grant and go out here and try to treat somebody.
Wow.
He was amazing.
He was amazing, right? Oh my God.
And I love what he said about people misappropriating funds and making sure that the money is being spent in the community that deserves to have the money. That's so important. It's about giving back and representing the people that voted you into office. So I think he was amazing. And I think all of our viewers need to get out, learn more about him, and make sure you go and vote, because that's so important. That's what we need at this time.
Absolutely. And you know what, Mr. Woodson, you know, we've been artists, I would say, most of our lives. My mother said the other week, you were kicking me in the stomach like my aunt. Right? She was a dancer in the womb. But, you know, I really believe that as artists, sometimes we are not so political, and we have to realize our voices matter in the arts as well as in the political circles and in life. And until we stop as artists always looking for who sees, you know, whose leg is the highest, who has the till, you know, what school you working in, or whose name you dropping, or, you know, just all of the things that people feel make them relevant. A lot of people feel to make them relevant. There are people like us who stand for more, as we have done. I've done it for over a decade. They stand for more than just the arts of movement. They stand for the art of life. And as you know, in a lot of our pieces, choreographically in our repertoire, I always put out a work, or a lot of our works have a lot of signature about what's going on. Like we have evolution of purpose of what's going on as humans and how we're evolving. And I always confronted racism in my works. Have I not, Mr. Woodson?
You pull from your own personal experience. You let us know what the inspiration for that particular piece is. And it makes it more meaningful, because we feel as your dancers that you're sharing a part of who you are in your past. And so you have more of an understanding of the movement and where it's coming from, and can connect to it, because we all have had different experiences that we can relate to whatever you are trying to say in that particular piece.
Yes. And you know, Mr. Woodson, speaking of, that's a lot. It's a lot when you get into our people, just what's going on.
Yeah, it's been very emotional.
It's very emotional. It is very emotional. And watching our men be killed, and it's just very emotional. And what I'm trying to see through all of the emotion is, like, it's sort of like when you ever see a child when there's a fight and you go straight for the two kids that are fighting, and then you realize after, and you know, as it calms down, like whether you realize it the next day or the next week or whatever, you find out more of the story of who incited the fight. And what really happened, and then you turn around, and the little girl who started the whole feud between the two fighting, she's the quiet one sitting in the corner.
Yes.
And and so you understand the example and the analogy, and you're like, wow, this is how this happened. Once you start getting all the answers. So yes, we know the direct answers, and we know the things we have to confront. We know that, and we are here. We are, as people of color, we are in for the fight. We are here to understand that things have to change, but we also know that, like he said, the things that serve and protect you are not always out to get you. There are some good officers. There are some, and people, they don't like when you say, oh, there's some good officers. No, listen, don't tell me about what my people, listen, I come from a lineage of great Black women and the Black struggle.
Mm-hmm.
I understand it too well. And those same people, Mr. Woodson, I'm digressing a bit, but those same people who have all this power to the people talk, I always say it every show. You never see them when we were in corporate America, and they watched a lot of the I won't use that word, but they watched a lot of people of non-color take us down and do deceptive things and racist things to us. They sat in those corners and they kept their mouths closed just because they wanted to keep their salary and they wanted to keep their classes or they wanted to keep their position. They sat right there and said, I'm gonna turn my head to you trying to make a downfall to a Black woman. Those are the same people that will be out there saying Black Lives Matter.
Yeah, it's you have to show the actions every single day. Just going to a protest is not enough. You need to be able to show the humanity and know that when something's wrong, it's wrong, and being silent about something and seeing something happen that's not right and remaining silent makes you just as guilty.
That's right.
Absolutely. Martin Luther King has a quote that it comes a point where silence becomes betrayal. So there's a point where you have to speak up when you see something that's not right, whatever it is. Whoever's doing it, you need to speak up and say something. So I just think it's just so important that we all use our voice. We all have this platform called social media, and do your research, get all the information, find out what is going on. Just don't turn a blind eye. I know it's a little bit hard seeing all these images of people dying. I get it. Sometimes I don't want to watch the news, but you need to know what's going on, especially in your community. It's so important, and take a stand. This is the time. As you would say, this is like the new civil rights era. It is.
On a lighter note, that blue hat is giving me energy of the sky.
Well, I had to match the lady in red, so I wore royal blue for the lady in red. So this is for you, Miss Cena.
Well, I'll take that. I just want us to, this is why I love Josephine's Cotton, our off-Broadway show, and our production.
Yes.
Because it doesn't matter where the production is. If God sees fit for it for the world to see, it will be seen.
It will be seen.
So, and we have played major playhouses and theaters. So I'm sure after we get out of this, Josephine's Cotton is going to play great places again.
Yeah.
But I just want you to know, when we're doing our show, Mr. Woodson, and I want you to know, as you know, Josephine Baker, all the greats, Billie Holiday, they really fought they had them coming into the back door. And Josephine was at restaurants with a critic. He lied. She said, why didn't you speak up for me? And that whole character of what we went through in the show, or what she went through, how we portrayed that, how she carried that out, and she called them out for their racism and said, I want to be served in this restaurant. I deserve to eat. So me going to all of that is because we understand the plight of racism and injustices in America. We understand it all too well. We are not Black Lives Matter only. We are it together. We are Black. Black Lives Matter all the time when we wake up. We are Black Lives Matter. Every day we get up, we are Black Lives Matter. So that's where I'm coming from. That's why it matters. That's why Black Lives Matter. Because every day I wear this skin, Black Lives Matter. But the point being is that I cannot be blinded to the fact that there are other people who have helped me as a Black woman. So therefore, I cannot say everybody goes into that pot and they are evil because of the evil acts of some men, right? And that was the purpose of today's guest, is to hear his voice, is to hear his platform, and to understand, to listen within our anger. We have rightfully so to be angry. But within that, we have an understanding of how we can get to the next levels and how we can make this civil rights era or whatever we are purposing for these fights. Where do we want to go with this, and not have this as a way that men are capitalizing off of us and pulling the walls, you know,
or making us destroy our own communities, and it's not going to be helpful at all.
Absolutely. And I support anyone's community that is about empowerment, upliftment, and inspiration.
Yes.
I support anyone that's about just the goodness of life and just the whole quality of life as a whole. And if you can't interact and we can't coincide in this life, or we work for a season or not for a season, that's fine. That's fine with me, honey. But the thing is that I choose to be positive. I choose to move forward with a positive demeanor and never forsake the good things that a person brought my life and the good things that people did for me. Because there are some good people out there in a world of badness.
A world of madness.
In a world of madness.
World of madness. We are here. Oh my goodness. This has been amazing. I feel like I can just reach through the camera and touch you and give you a big hug, but we'll be able to do that very, very soon. I cannot wait till the day.
Yes. And that will be very, very, very soon. But it seems as if I saw you in person already. Ooh, you carry it on up here, Miss Tina. But yes, but
on the street.
Down the street, I just don't know. But you know what? It's really something. You know, we've had several different interesting topics on our show called Beauty and the Spirit, a podcast episodic. That's the difference. We are not just a podcast. We are a podcast episodic, because there's always an episode going on when we come into the mix. Yes. So are there any final words you would like our viewers to know before we leave the building for today?
I say take care of yourselves. Make sure that you go out and vote. If you see that there's something wrong in your community, take a stand. Contact your local politicians. Go out and vote for Mr. Tony Herbert. He was amazing. And just live your life. Live your best life.
Live your best life, honey. Live your best life. Stop acting as if you're just this person that has no feelings or empathy. If someone is killed in the streets and people are angry about it, they have every right to be angry about it. Our men, as I said, we need to protect and preserve our culture. But first, our culture needs to protect and preserve themselves. And that is through behavior, character, and changing legislation and fighting the fight in the good way, even though there's bad before us. You know, you never fight somebody who is ruthless the way they fight you. I know a lot of people think that works, you know, but you never fight a ruthless person the way they fight you. Ever, ever. What do you say? Cast not thy pearls among swine. And you will have a more ingenuous way of getting things done when you don't stoop to the level of what someone has done to you. Now, on that note, we thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Beauty in the Spirit. And I know you're going to have a great week.
Thank you, guys. We'll see you soon.
Happy Sunday. Tomorrow, go out there, get some air. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
See you guys later.
See you guys.